Hey guys, what's going on? So this is kind of a video I've been kind of wanting to make for a while, because I think a lot of people, when they buy a sport quad, whether it be their first one or they're upgrading to a 450 or something like that, I feel like sometimes a lot of people take the wrong approach, and they generally always go for an exhaust and everything first, in terms of modifications. And I don't necessarily think that's always the right choice to make for like what I would consider must-have sport quad modifications. So I don't have a list or anything in front of me. I'm just kind of doing this like improv, but I would say, this is just my opinion, but if you're gonna buy a modern sport quad, like say 05 and up, the first things I would really consider working on is the like rider triangle. So I'm talking about foot pegs, seat, handlebars, and that's everything from grip style to handlebar height, to whether you're going to go with Nerfs or just heel guards, and seats. So we'll kind of start at the bottom. So I like to run Nerf bars. I am comfortable with just heel guards and pegs, but I like to run Nerf bars. And the stock pegs on most machines, they've gotten better, especially like with the LTR and the newer Yamaha YFZ and even the Raptor. They have pretty wide foot pegs from the factory, and by wide I mean they're not little thin things, kind of like the older sport quads. Like even the Z400 has pretty thin pegs, and what that does, when you're riding really rough terrain, that puts a lot of strain on your feet, and you also don't have a ton of grip. So what I would really, and it's also a safety item, Nerf bars, especially if you're going to do any kind of closed course racing. It really helps prevent other riders, other wheels from coming into your your footwell area. So I would really highly recommend Nerf bars. I've tried them all. I don't really care for Wrath. I really like the Factory 43. They really fit the best. AC is great. If you can still find some Pro Armors, those are great. Wrath, it's okay, but you're going to have to do some work on them, in my opinion, to make them fit. They don't really fit that great. I've got them on the 400. But really anything, I personally wouldn't go for the Alba or like the Tusk. Those Chinese, they're all made in like the same Chinese factory. Wouldn't really go for those. They kind of, the pegs kind of canter downwards. They're not very confidence inspiring. I've seen them snap in person. So if you're not going to do like a Factory 43, Wrath, I'm trying to think if there's a few other ones. I know like Lone Star and Hauser makes them as well. Those are probably excellent. But I would really get yourself a good set of pegs. And then for the seat, if you like the Factory 43 gripper, that's fine. I've always been a big fan of the Quad Tech with the super grip on the side. They really are super grippy. And what this does, and I really noticed it when I bought this quad last year, because I rode it like 3 or 4 rides with the stock seat, and your arms get so much more fatigued. And even though you should be standing 80 to 90% of the time anyway, you do find yourself holding on tighter because your ass is just sliding backwards constantly. So that's one thing I would totally get. Even if you get like a cheap $20 Attack gripper seat cover off like Rocky Mountain, those are really excellent covers for the money. So anything gripper, if you want to get like a color match thing to match your theme or whatever, that's cool. But definitely look into a gripper seat. The next thing, handlebars. This is kind of machine specific and rider specific. I'm a shorter guy, but I like a taller bar, and the only reason I do is because I'm standing all the time riding through woods. It's all whooped out and chopped out here, and I like to stand. So I like the quad, and the flex bars. I like the Quad Racer High, and I usually get the 15 degree, so it sweeps back. And then I have a stock height stem. On the Z, I'm running a +2 stem, and on the 250R, I'm running a +1, I think. But you really kind of have to feel it, kind of get on it, ride it with the stock bars, see what you think and how you ride. If you're riding motocross, I would kind of tend to recommend a lower height bar, and that's only because that'll help you turn better. When you're hanging off the side of the quad, you really don't want tall bars, and plus the low bars will kind of encourage you to have an elbows out approach, which is what you want. You don't want to be tucking your elbows in corners, so that's kind of dangerous and not the proper technique. But so we've covered foot pegs, seat, handlebars. An anti-vibe stem isn't a must, but it's what I do pretty much on all the quads that I get. They especially like the Lone Stars are really good, the old Hausers are good, really any of them are good. Even the Alba, I've never really had a problem with the Albas, and you know, if you break one or bend one, they're cheap to replace. But these are much stronger than the stock stems. You can get them powder coated in any color. They do sap out some of the vibration because you have these little rubber isolators here, so it kind of separates your hands from the metal. So it's just a recommendation, but definitely not a must-have on the anti-vibe stem. And then I would totally ditch the stock clutch lever, and I would, you know, these Works connections, I've always strayed away from them because they're so expensive, but man, they have like a triple ball bearing in here, and they're for just a regular pull style clutch lever. I've tried them all, and I really think this one's the best. But the ASVs are good. I just don't like how they're not really sealed as good. Maybe the F6 ASVs are sealed all the way, but the Works connection, and then if you want to, you know, these are like $130, but if you want to do a Pro Taper profile clutch perch, which you can get on Amazon, they're like $60, and they're very, very similar to the Works connection. They're not available in different colors or anything like that. But so definitely different clutch lever. I personally like the stock brake levers, but what I've found to like the most is the TRX 450R master cylinder and the stock lever. To me, something about it, I don't know if it's just the ratio with how much fluid it pushes or what, but the combination of the master cylinder and the lever just to me feels the best. So believe it or not, I actually have this is a brand new TRX 450 master cylinder. I just, instead of buying a used one and rebuilding it, I just buy them new. They're not that much money, and I have them on all three bikes, all three quads, and I love them. They're just, to me, they're the best. The Hermosi throttle, I love it. It's probably not a must-have, but if you ride for a long periods of time, it's really nice just to be able to, you know, get on, adjust it, you know, to your preference for the day or for what you're doing, and go. Hermosi's awesome. If you can't swing that kind of cash, any Honda housing is really great. I always usually try and find like a 400EX housing. Some people like to get, you know, the TRX 90 lever, and you can put the TRX 90 lever, which is longer. You can put that in like any Honda housing. But again, I always had good luck with just the stock 400EX, 450R, 300EX, Recon, all those. They're all pretty much the same from like 1990 to, you know, current. They're like all the same lever. So very good for a stock, you know, throttle housing. It's the most ergonomic of the factory throttles, in my opinion. So that kind of covers the triangle. Grips are really personal preference. I used to always be a ruffian guy, but I've really, I forget who turned me on to these Rogues, but probably 4 or 5 years ago, I gave them a shot. And even though they're a thicker grip, they're just really comfortable. They're gummy. They're like kind of a gummy. They kind of keep your paws on the bars really good. And it's really just an excellent a grip, in my opinion. Moving on, for safety, I really recommend everyone to run a kill tether. For a lot of the modern sport quads, there's guys, you know, either on eBay or like on the Facebook pages that'll make plug and play kits, you know, that just have you don't have to do any kind of cutting or splicing. In the old days, I would always do cutting and splicing, especially like even on the 400, I did it all myself. But on the other ones now, you know, on modern bikes, you can just get a plug and play kit, and all this does is if you fall off the bike, it kills the quad, so it doesn't run you over or run someone else over or whatever. But very good safety item to have. And then I always delete the blob. The Suzuki's, the blob, I mean, it's like the multi-function switch up here. It's got like the start, stop, the headlights and all that junk. On the Suzuki's, it's the easiest because if you want to keep your headlights, the headlights are controlled by your key down here anyway. It's not controlled by up here. So on the Yamahas and Hondas, I get it. If you want to keep it, that's not a must-have. That's just something I like to do to clean up the bars. Handguards, not necessary, but they can save you from a broken finger, broken hand. whether you're riding in the woods and you want to avoid branches and sticks, or if you're on a track with rocks. I've had some pretty messed up knuckles and stuff before I used to start running these Handguards. I like the PowerMad. They're the PowerMad Star series. They're affordable, they're robust, I love them. A lot of people like the Cherubies, those are good too. Really anything to kind of just protect you. These to me just look the cleanest. So that kind of covers the rider triangle. Next would be tires, and this again kind of depends on where you're riding, but I've found these XC Masters, they're really good anywhere. They're good on a track, they're good in the woods, they're 6-ply. If you install them correctly, they really don't leak air, even on these non-beadlock wheels. I used to be a beadlock guy, and if you're racing, it's probably a good idea to run beadlocks, but if you're just riding recreationally like I am now, they're just a pain in the ass to me. They're the beadlock bolts, you have to check those from time to time. They pretty much always tend to leak. They're heavier than hell. They're hard to clean. Just if there's nothing wrong with your stock wheels, just leave them and just get some good tires mounted up at your local shop. And then we can move on to some of their performance stuff. But again, I would really focus on that area first and get comfortable on your quad before you just start throwing more power at it. And what I've always noticed, especially with the quad guys, the quad community, everyone always argues about what's the best pipe. And there's a lot of boutique, pipes out there. And there's nothing wrong with them. They're excellent pipes. Like Rossier is excellent, Empire, Dasa. What else is that? There's a ton of them out there. RP, but a lot of people like to bag on like the Yoshis and the FMF and the HMF and like the bigger name exhaust companies. And I just think it's silly. I mean, you're talking, I don't know, maybe 1 to 2 horsepower. Maybe if you have a ton of motor work, sure, maybe they make a lot more power, but whatever. Just get a good pipe that fits your budget, that has good reviews for your machine. Suzuki and Yoshi have always kind of been synonymous, so I've always liked the Yoshis. I loved it on the Z, but HMF does have a little better clearance for the caliper on the 400, which is why I kind of switched to the HMF. But I love the Yoshi. It's going to give you a little more power. On a fuel injected bike, you're going to want to get, either a Vortex or something to, enrich in the fuel. On the LTR, obviously, you can just plug in a Cherry Bomb and you're good to go. On this quad, believe it or not, I'm not running an aftermarket intake. You really don't need them on the LTR. The factory Suzuki race team ran the stock intake tube and stock foam filter. They didn't run an FCI or anything fancy like that. On a YFZR, you're probably going to want an FCI and a Vortex, and that's some money, but it'd be something you'd want to do, in terms of power. As far as protection goes, again, Nerf bars would fall under there. A skid plate underneath, to me, is like mandatory. I like the poly skid plates, and I've always liked, if they make one for your machine, I would recommend TM Design Works. The way they mount up, it's just effortless. There's no like weird little conduit clamps or anything weird like that. And for the most part, all the holes for the oil, drains and everything are all in the right spot. They don't rattle. I think the one on the Z400 I've had on since 2019, so we're going on like 5 years on the same skid plate, and I don't know how many hours. So they're a really excellent skid plate. Front bumper, that's again personal preference. I used to always love the AC bumpers in the front. I really kind of like these Duncan bumpers. They're not obstructed in the front, and they really allow a ton of airflow to the radiator, and it just makes picking up the quad for maintenance or yanking it around a lot easier. The rear grab bar isn't such a must-have. This is the stock rear grab bar here on the LTR, and I mean, I would love a Hauser drop down, but again, not necessary. And then on the back, I usually run a rotor guard. I'm usually always running the Hess Motorsports guard, which kind of incorporates the brake stay into the guard. On this one, excuse me, I'm going with a Ryland Johnson Racing. It's a stainless steel rotor guard, and just protects the rotor from getting bent. The stock plastic ones don't really do anything. Sprocket guards, if you're riding in a rocky area, probably a good idea. Down here in Florida, I don't really find them necessary, especially if you have a swing arm with a chain guide that kind of protects the sprocket well enough, in my opinion. So that's some must-have mods. Another one, you know, I see a lot of people overlook is these timing chain, timing inspection plugs. On all the machines, they kind of suck. The Suzuki's, I think they're like a magnesium or something, but they kind of get like all marred up right here. They're like a one-time use. They're like a one and done, because once you crack it open, it like ruins the little Allen head insert. So I always upgrade them to like an anodized setup from either Works Connection or Yoshi. The Yamahas, I think, are plastic and they like to leak, so I would definitely upgrade the Yamaha ones. If you have a YFZ or a Raptor, I would definitely go with some Works Connection, or GYTR if they make them, I don't know. And then another good one is the lithium battery. You can save like 5 or 6 pounds, which on an LTR is huge, because an LTR is pretty heavy. YFZ, I would do it, and a Raptor, I would do it as well. They I think they're from Firepower, like Firepower Featherlight. They're a little expensive, but man, they last a long time, and they have a little test light on them so you can see if the battery, you know, is still good. They always hold a charge. They don't really discharge like a regular lead acid battery does. And again, they are a lot lighter. And now suspension. So again, this kind of depends how your machine came from the factory. You know, a new YFZ, I honestly wouldn't do anything. They're so good. The arms, swing arm, the linkage, the shocks, they're just perfect out of the box. Ride it, you know, get a ton of hours on them, and then just have them rebuilt, you know, and set up for your weight and riding style later on. The LTR, also pretty dang good. The front shocks aren't quite as good as like the stock YFZ, but I have never had a problem with them. I really love the stock look on this machine, but I probably will eventually go to a long travel setup. But these are the stock KYB shocks, front and back. And I had these rebuilt by 612 down here in Dade City. And on the back, I'm running a Hess linkage, XC linkage. And that just kind of gets the ride height correct for this machine. Since it came from the factory with 18-inch wheels, that linkage was kind of designed around 18-inch, you know, motocross wheels. So this XC linkage kind of corrects it for the taller 20-inch GBCs. And then once you get a little more serious and you get a little better, your skills get a little better. Honestly, even if they're not, even if you're just, this is kind of a safety item in my opinion, is a stabilizer. And whether or not, you know, you want to get an old style stick, a CCP or a Precision, I think I would just go for the Precision. They kind of own the market. I don't really get the Pro or the Elite or whatever. I just get the standard ones, and they've always done me fine. The stick stabilizers will work, but they also kind of fight against you as well, so they can also make you a little more fatigued. The CCP is very good if you can find one for your machine. Nothing wrong with it. I just like the Precision because it's got separate adjustments for the center stiffness and the side stiffness, and you can fine tune it for different terrains and soil and everything else. But man, Pete Hager's got an excellent video on the stabilizer, just showing him, you know, riding and going over like a log on the right, and how it just keeps the bars from getting jerked out of your hands from rocks and roots. So, you know, if you're a parent and your kid's out there riding alone, I would highly recommend this for like a birthday or a Christmas present. It's a really great mod. And the best part is, if you know, sell the quad and buy another quad, or like you upgrade it or whatever later down the road, you can take it off and put it on that machine. Precision makes separate, you know, you can buy the mounts for the whatever machine you're going to put it on separate from the puck itself. So I'm sure I'm forgetting some things, but I think I covered most of it. I don't really go for the billet gas cap crap with the little stubby thing. That's just a bling mod, and two, on almost every machine I have, they like plug up. Either the tank will expand, or it'll just starve the engine of fuel, and the engine will shut off. On the Raptor I had, the 700, it would always shut off on me, and I would open that gas cap, and the tank would like shrink. It was crazy. The 250R, I'm pretty sure it's caused me some issues, and I've just never put one on the LTR. And then another great mod, in my opinion, is this little Fast Company spring. You don't necessarily have to get the clevis, but the spring here for the master cylinder, it just integrates the spring, and you can control the stiffness and the rate at which the pedal returns. You can kind of fine tune it for yourself rather than having that spring that goes from here to here, which, believe it or not, on the Z400, that spring fell off I don't know how many times for me. So it's just nice to be able to eliminate that and just have this right here. And again, you can kind of adjust it by hand, you know, how stiff you want it. So it's awesome. And then another one that I like to do, definitely not a must-have, but something that I can actually feel after I do it, is stainless braided brake lines. You don't have to do the dual setup like I do. All this does is just give you a little bit more fluid and a little bit more direct feel per caliper. But the standard one line that tees off is nope, there's nothing wrong with that as well, but it just gives you a more positive feel when you're pulling that lever. There's no expansion in the brake lines, so something to consider. But I hope this helps you guys. If you have any questions or something I missed, which I'm sure I have, leave it down in the comments below. And if you want to leave a suggestion for the next video, or you have questions, again, please leave it down below and let me know. And I will catch you guys in the next one. See ya.